Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This is my final preview video for Tony Yoka vs Johann Duhaupas, an all-French affair which is happening this weekend in France. So this is actually a fight that was never meant to take place, but circumstances around the pandemic have made it so. And I've got to say, I think it's actually turned out for the best, because Tony Yoka, who'd signed a deal with Top Rank, probably would have been off in the United States having what we'd call a few warm-up or introductory fights against lesser opposition. But in Johann Duhaupas, for this fight, because of the circumstances, this is one that's been long talked about. They were meant to have it last year, it never came off, but it is now occurring. And despite Duhaupas being 39 years old, he certainly is getting long in the tooth now. This is more than a ready test for Tony Yoka, because Yoka's opponent so far, for a prospect, a guy who's 7-0, it's been pretty good, but it's not to the sort of level that Duhaupas is at. Mikhail Wallisch and Alexander Demetrenko, those are guys, his most recent opponents, who are gatekeepers, but they're top 50, top 60, something like that. But often they come in, they have a few rounds in them, and then they're out of there. He's also fought Dave Allen and had another good fight with Jonathan Rice. This is on his resume. So pretty good resume for a guy 7-0, but it is time for a step up. Yoka wants to advance his cause and start getting towards the contender level fights. And this is one of those fights that is almost at that contender level, but not quite, because Duhaupas, he is past prime. He's not as good as he once was, Duhaupas being a former title challenger. He was beaten by Deontay Wilder about 5 years ago, but he is still a test for a guy on the way up. And he is one of the most durable guys in the heavyweight division, so I'm expecting that this one is going to go rounds. I don't think Tony Yoka is just going to have it all his own way. I could see this being somewhat similar to the Dave Allen fight in respect of it going rounds. Allen was stopped in the final round of that fight, which was a 10-round fight back in 2018. And maybe something similar could happen here, that this is going to go late, and if there is a stoppage, bearing in mind that this is a 12-round fight, it could come in the latter part of the fight. I'm expecting Yoka to come out and really try to be careful early on. He will know that Duhaupas can be dangerous early, and if we're to go by the Jarrell Miller fight, and I guess there's the perils with believing was Miller clean with that one, but Miller versus Duhaupas in 2018, Duhaupas had about 6 really good rounds in him. Miller was forcing the pace. Duhaupas just couldn't keep up after 6 rounds and started to fade after that. And then Miller basically swept all the latter rounds of that fight. And maybe it will be something similar here, because I think Tony Yoka is going to come out. He'll use movement. He'll use his jab. He'll be looking for right hands. But I don't think he'll be taking any unnecessary risks. He is a guy who is taller here, but they do actually have a very similar reach. Yoka 82 and Duhaupas, I didn't really remember this, but a reach listed as 82.5 inches. So it could be a case Duhaupas himself, he will be looking for the jab and probably as well the right hand, looking to unload some big shots if he can actually manage to catch up with Tony Yoka, who I think will be quite elusive. But it is one of these fights that I don't just want to see Tony Yoka on the move. I want to see him sort of tested to some extent, in the chin in particular, because there is, and this is a hangover from the amateur days, a question about his whiskers. How good is his chin? Can he protect it in the heavyweight division? Can he hold up to some elite level power? And Duhaupas, not the most massive puncher in the heavyweight division, but he can punch. So I'm hoping to see the whiskers tested, but I mean, I guess there is some scope for an upset, maybe a potential stoppage for Duhaupas. But if I'm picking who's to win this fight, it's the younger, fresher man who, in my view, has better movement, just better skills and boxing acumen in general. Johann Duhaupas is going to be tracking forward. He'll be looking for Tony Yoka, but I think he will be finding some fresh air. But it'll be interesting to see if Duhaupas has still got the chin of old, if he can sort of walk through some of those punches, put Yoka under some sort of pressure that he really hasn't been in to this point in his career. But But I'm picking if Duhaupas manages to bundle him up in one of the corners or something, he'll look to sort of slide out along the ropes. And Johann Duhaupas, not the quickest feet, so I think Tony Yoka, who does move like a gazelle, he's got really good footwork. I think he'll be looking to utilize that as much as possible. But yeah, I could see this one sort of being a bit of a long-range sort of fight to some extent early on. Maybe Tony Yoka, once he settles into his work, will look to sort of engage a bit more. But I think there will be, especially early on, a safety first element. But like I say, I can't rule out that Tony Yoka will get stopped or anything like that, because there is a question about his chin. But on the face of it, if you were to pick on the form guide, the way Tony Yoka has been looking, Johann Duhaupas has been on the decline, this should be a fight where Tony Yoka can go in, get some rounds, look good, and effectively re-announce himself to the heavyweight division, bearing in mind his last fight was in September 2019. So it has been a year out of the ring for Tony Yoka, while Johann Duhaupas, who's got a record of 38 wins, 5 losses, his last fight, that was in October 2019 against Luis Pascual. So that was just a tune-up fight, and that was after a year out of the ring previously, or 18 months or so, from that Miller fight, as I mentioned earlier. And he did take some time off last year, Duhaupas, for the birth of his first child. So that was part of the reason a Duhaupas and Yoka fight didn't happen. But I guess it's a little bit serendipitous with the pandemic. It sort of has forced this sort of situation together. But if Yoka can go in there and look good and really sort of outbox Duhaupas and have a few problems, it is a re-announcement to the heavyweight division, and I think people will start to take a bit note of Yoka, who, for a large part of his career to date, barring the issue that he had with missing some drug testing, so he served a 1-year ban for missing testing. There was no failed tests, but there was missed tests, about 4 of them. But he kind of has been campaigning in obscurity. So it is a case where he can get some, headlines out of a very good performance. And I'm sure the top-ranked PR machine will be looking to push that, because the ultimate goal is for him to go to the United States, build on what he's been doing, get into contender-level fights and position for a title shot at some point. It's hard to see when that title shot would come, because there's a bit of a logjam at the top of the heavyweight division. But Yoka needs to be in these fights. Some of his peers in the heavyweight division aren't fighting the sort of caliber of opponent that Yoka is fighting in this fight. Duhaupas is still a guy who's, top 30-ish, top 40-ish, maybe he's there or thereabouts. BoxRec has him as at 42, while Yoka is listed at 26 in the world. So I like this fight. It's a good progression fight for Tony Yoka, and should he get through it, well, the world could be his oyster in terms of the what next. But we'll see what happens with this weekend, but I am picking Tony Yoka to win, and I think it probably goes to a decision, but I wouldn't rule out a late stoppage for Yoka. But, there is the outside possibility as well that Duhaupas, if he can put it on Yoka and manage to get through and crack that chin, or maybe there could be an upset on the cards. It's 2020. We've seen a lot of strange things happening. But drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.